Productions presents Guide for the Film Fanatic, the podcast where we invite a guest to pick one movie from Danny Perry's seminal 1986 film reference book and talk to us about that movie. I'm your host, Jason Bailey. Across the mic and across the country from me is my co-host,
Michael Hull.
Our guest today is a sort of a professional podcast guest. You've heard her on Film Feast, on Film Alchemist, VHUS, Movies from Hell, and the Cult Movies podcast, where, you won't believe this, they talk about movies from Danny Perry's Cult Movies books, if you can imagine such a thing. She recently appeared also with our friend Brian Sauer on the Pure Cinema podcast and wowed me on that, so we're thrilled to welcome Carmelita Valdez McKoy. Hi, Carmelita.
Oh, hi, gentlemen.
Thank you so much. So much for coming on. Your film knowledge is deep and wide. You seem to have seen just about everything. We always like to ask new guests, because I'm genuinely fascinated by this, for their origin story. So let's start there. What made you like this? What was your entry point into this kind of intense, cinephilia?
Well, we were a movie watching family. My father is a workaholic to this very day. I think he just recently cut back his hours, but growing up, he was at work 6-7 days a week. So his one hobby was watching TV and going to the movies. And this was the early 80s. So we were allowed to watch whatever he was watching. Anything went. So, I was like this weird little girl that would sit down and watch The Godfather and The Wild Bunch and Terminator. And so movies was kind of our family outing. It was the thing that we did together. One of the few things we all did together. Mm-hmm. And I think too, just a general love of the arts, of the spoken word and the written word, of music and film is all of those things. It's the visual, it's the sound design, it's the dialogue and the story. It marries all of these things that I love in this one medium. And so I think as a teenager, I got more into exploring film. In those days, it was the video store, and we'd go to the video store and just get stacks. Yep. Stacks of films, or on a weekend, you just put on TCM and back when AMC was American Movie Classics, when it was still movies and not The Walking Dead in 20 iterations, when it was all films, you just watch for hours. We'd spend whole weekends watching movies. And over time, just always wanting to experience more. Right. And so here we are.
See, you hit on something that, and we've brushed up against it on occasional episodes, but I think is a real thing that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, which is that, I have two kids. Mine are 9 and 12 at the moment. And they have their own interests. They love to watch things, but technology allows taste to be siloed off within the family.
Oh, yes.
My youngest loves, YouTube videos, and she has her favorite YouTubers. My older daughter has certain TV shows that she binges repeatedly, and I watch movies and her mom watches TV. And it's like when we were kids, when there weren't that many devices and there wasn't that kind of technology, we as kids were watching things that were in no way intended for us. We were watching grown-up movies at 8, 9, 10 years old. And I think for me personally, and I get this feeling from you, that is a huge part of the taste that I have. That I was seeing things that were not really appropriate for me to see just yet. Was that kind of your experience as well?
Oh, yes. Yeah. It was challenging. I did an episode of Cult Movies on Citizen Kane. Okay. I saw Citizen Kane the first time when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Because I had heard different places that this was the greatest movie ever made, and at 8 years old I was like, I want to see the greatest movie ever made. And I knew nothing about the story. Clearly it's not a film for children,
of course,
and I didn't fully get it that first time. It's one of my favorites now, and I don't know if it's the greatest movie ever made, but I will say I love it. Folks, still go check out Citizen Kane. But and I think there's nothing wrong with challenging children or young people or ourselves to continue to explore. And you might find that something's not your taste, or you don't fully get it the first time, and that's okay. I think this is also a very pertinent conversation to be having for this episode and talking about the things that we watch and we consume. And, I'll say too, I have also noticed that a lot of young people, my friends with children and nieces and nephews who are much, much younger, wanting more kind of short form content, YouTube, TikTok, etc. Right. But I will let you guys know, folks, I'm a family friend of some families with teenagers who have taken an interest in film, and I've been able to share with them things like Heathers, Carrie, things that resonated with me at their age.
Yeah.
And they can take an interest. Some teenagers and young people still have an interest if it's presented to them with enthusiasm. So
there you go.
There is hope.
I don't know who it was, Jason, who you asked, but I remember Jason's kids are a few years older than mine. And I remember when they were about the age mine are now, I don't remember who you asked, but you asked somebody, how do you get kids to watch black and white movies or something like that?
Yeah.
And the response was, you just put it on and don't act like it's weird. Like if you tell them, like, I know this is going to be weird and blah, 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 then you're like telling them that they are going to object to it. But if you just put it on, you're like, no, this is great. And you don't acknowledge that it's odd, that they won't know that it's odd. And by the time somebody tells them, they'll already have an attitude like, what is wrong with you? And that is one of those things that, like, I didn't have kids the first time you told me that. I don't know who you asked, but obviously that little bit of information is stuck in my head. Yeah. Mine are just getting old enough to watch a whole thing now. And the young ones still couldn't care less. But I can tell that that's a matter of attitude and not necessarily age. Like, she just doesn't give a shit about anything that's not immediately happening to her. But the older one is so engaged in story that, when Annie's on the bridge, she's like, turn it off! Like, she can't take it. And my wife has to be like, it's okay. Like, I know it's scary, but, like, I mean, it's like it's happening to her.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, she's the one. So, anyway, I that advice is stuck so deep.
Yeah.
You're touching on something. The experience of watching, there's so much more that we get from cinema than just entertainment. We get catharsis. We learn empathy. We become engaged in characters and their story. Yeah. And we experience it with them. How much do we learn about relationships and connection with other people and the world through film?
Yep.
It's 100%. A beautiful education.
Every now and then I sit down to watch some nonsense with them just to, like, be a good dad or whatever, And then it's How to Train Your Dragon, and you're like, this movie's amazing. That happens often enough, too.
There you go. So, Carmelita, you're on our show. As I mentioned, and as you mentioned, you've appeared on the Cult Movies podcast as well. What is your history, if any, with Danny Perry and his books?
Well, none until I met Anthony King, and he invited me to be on Cult Movies. Folks, I have no qualifications other than I'm just a movie watching machine and an overthinker and a chatty Cathy. I have zero qualifications. And so he introduced me to that through the Cult Movies podcast. And it's been really interesting as I listen to podcasts that are delving into his work and using that as a springboard to have further conversations about the films that he wrote about. His perspective, and he's coming from a particular time and his own bias, and the films that he chooses to write about. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, well, on that note then, what film out of the 1,600 plus in Guide for the Film Fanatic did you select to discuss with us today?
I had like 50 at a glance that I would have talked about, so I'll just put this in right now. You want to have me back, I'd come back in a heartbeat.
There we go.
We don't want to put the cart before the horse. So, we're talking about David Cronenberg's Videodrome.
I mean, that's how you know it's the original trailer. You got that green card right.
Very satisfying.
Old school.
Very nice. Yeah.
Okay, now this trailer fucking rules
So
because
good.
I mean, especially in '83, your typical approach is to do the, just throw a bunch of images up with some weird music, tell the story to some extent, tell what the plot is, meet Max Wren. He's a yada, you know what I mean? And to instead do this very short trailer that is basically just this one scene, but with some of the most arresting imagery in the movie is a brave, weird, cool choice.
But anything else just would have been a lie.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
The most provocative motion picture experience of our time. If you're going to make a proclamation like that, that's a bold statement. And I think they lived up to it.
I think so too. Well, you have to consider as well, Cronenberg at that time, coming off of Scanners.
Right.
Anyone who saw Scanners and saw some of the images in that film.
Yeah.
We're not going to fluff it up for this one or hide that away. That's a draw.
Right. Well,
knowing that you're going to get this very visceral images.
Well, and particularly with that one, like I remember when I was obviously too young to have seen either of them. I remember my dad telling me about the key image in Scanners, like the degree to which that scene like broke horror movie containment. Like my dad was not a horror movie guy, but normies knew Scanners is the movie where a guy looks at another guy and his head explodes. and that was its notoriety. And so when a movie is as defined as a single image as that one was, and then a filmmaker is defined really by that movie, it wasn't his first, but it was his first sort of breakout hit, at least in the States, you got to show that you're bringing the goods a second time, I guess.
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, so Videodrome is one of two 1983 releases by director David Cronenberg, who also wrote this mind-melting mixture of analog noise, body horror, mind control, and media commentary. It was Cronenberg's first major studio picture released by Universal Pictures, though it was financed by our old friend Canadian tax shelter money. Cronenberg's last feature to be funded by those means. And it was his largest budgeted feature to date, thanks to as we mentioned, the success of Scanners. In fact, that film, here we go, was so successful that he was considered as a possible director for Return of the Jedi.
Very different movie if that happened.
Though he told Lucasfilm that he was only interested in directing his own material, and that was the end of that conversation. I like Jedi, but man, I would have loved to have seen the David Lynch Return of the Jedi, and I would have loved to have seen the David Cronenberg Return of the Jedi. All right, Mike, what does Danny Perry say about Videodrome in Guide for the Film Fanatic?
Danny says,
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I would have preferred either of those. Okay,
fun.
Danny. James Woods is the seedy, profit-motivated owner of a cable channel that specializes in softcore porn and violence. A local video pirate tells him that he's hooked into a station called Videodrome that secretly broadcasts non-stop real torture, mutilations, and murder. Woods pretends interest in the snuff channel because he might be able to buy the low-cost programming for his own station. But the more he watches the weird images, the more obsessed he becomes with the S&M content. His baser feelings emerge. He slips into possible madness. His concepts of reality and illusion become blurred. But it's not really his fault. He has fallen into a trap and is under someone else's control. The images have a hallucinatory power, and a puritanical right-winger wants to broadcast them on Wood's station in order to destroy the minds of all people who would watch such trash. David Cronenberg's horror film is ambitious and makes strong points about the hypnotic power of television and its ability to turn the mind to mush. But it becomes so cerebral that its fascinating premise is lost in a massive confusion in the last third of the film. The special effects by Rick Baker are well done, but many of the images are both stupid and repulsive, i.e. Wood's stomach opening up and swallowing a gun, a video cassette, a hand.
I would replace stupid and repulsive with fucking awesome, but that's just me.
And when Wood starts clamoring about the new flesh, where the anti-mate, inanimate, and organic merge, then I think the film is really out of its mind. Nevertheless, Woods gives a fine performance and singer Deborah Harry is truly seductive. Let's try a few things. As Woods' masochistic lover. Also with Sonia Smits, who is linked in some way to Harry, Peter Dvorsky, Les Carlson, Jack Creeley, and Lynn Gorman. All right, I am really sorry. I just want to apologize right off the bat that due to the format of this show, you had to hear me repeat one of Deborah Harry's best lines in her entire career, and hopefully we can all forget that ever happened and go back to having her saying it as the one that is burned in your mind.
There you go. I mean, if you
That
want to
was a
get
formatting
fancy,
thing, my fault.
If you want to get fancy in the edit, Mike, you can dub in her voice there. I mean, no one's stopping you.
Thank you, Jason.
No
I'm
one's
going
stopping
to
you.
do that.
Okay, there you go.
That. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, so Carmelita.
For my own sake.
Out of, as we said, the 1,600 plus, and then out of the 50 or so that jumped out at you, why was your final choice Videodrome? What does this movie mean to you?
Oh, I adore this film. So David Cronenberg is my favorite director.
Okay.
Of the many, 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 many films that I have watched.
Yeah.
And the many filmmakers that I adore, David Cronenberg is my absolute favorite. I love the way this man's mind works. I love his approach to storytelling. And of all of David Cronenberg's films that I have seen, there's a few shorts and some of early things that I haven't seen yet. All of his films that I've seen, Videodrome is my favorite. And beyond that, I think this is a film, and it's so remarkable because films that feature certain technological tools can become outdated so quickly, but this film is actually more relevant today than it was in 1983 when it was seen. The experience of watching this and the way in which we can relate to this story and the implications that it has on our daily lives is, I mean, it just blows my mind. This film is so incredible. And then on top of that, it's just fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's just so masterfully done, so entertaining, balls to the wall, crazy prosthetics, really cool scenes. Yes, very seductive scenes, these great performances. And then the ideas, and that's the thing that really draws me to Cronenberg, is that he is this very cerebral filmmaker, and he wants to explore ideas, and he does it in this really artful way. But he's asking you to think. He's asking me to think. I'll speak for me. I love rolling the ideas and the themes and the things that he's exploring around in my brain. And you can track his whole career. We see the threads. I mean, really back to Shivers. But you can track this thread, these thematic byways, right, through his work. And he weaves it in and approaches it in different ways over a 50-something year career.
Right.
But it's just, this film, I think, really captures how powerful of a filmmaker he is.
Yeah.
And how he can deliver something that's very entertaining, really cool to watch, really engaging, and also just full of ideas that are important and prescient, and you want to think about it some more.
Right. No, you really nailed it there, because he is a cerebral filmmaker, but he doesn't make the mistakes that most sort of intellectual, cerebral, highfalutin filmmakers make. I mean, in I think two ways. And first and foremost, that he's almost always smuggling these ideas in under the cover of genre. And that is like so important, that if you can dazzle people with Rick Baker's practical effects, or, and with the sort of sci-fi or horror trappings, then you can also sort of tackle these big ideas in a way that doesn't feel didactic, but also because he's so image oriented. And I think so many intellectual filmmakers forget that it is a visual medium and instead just have characters pronouncing things and talking to each other, and lots of scenes and people in rooms being intellectual, as opposed to like putting a really arresting image on screen and plumbing it. That's hard to do, and he does it with what feels like a kind of effervescence, an effortless grace almost. What is your personal history with this? When did you first see it? I saw in your letterbox where it was one of your 4 favorites, and it looks like one you check in on it about once a year.
Yes.
But when did that start? When did you start watching this movie?
I saw Videodrome the first time. I was a teenager.
Okay.
And coming to it then, it was like, yeah, this cool movie where you don't know what's real, and there's sex and there's violence and it's gory and the body horror. And that was the draw at that time. But I was interested in the ideas, in the philosophy of Videodrome. Mm-hmm. And I would go on to visit it periodically. Mm-hmm. And I just love it more and more with each subsequent viewing. And I have a longing to watch this movie, so I do frequently.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
Yeah. Mike, what's your background with this one?
I don't even remember, but I remember that it was on a VHS tape because I remember the tapes that he was holding were different. It didn't look like the VHS tapes, and now, of course, I can identify those as beta tapes. I did done a whole movie about this. Like, now I know exactly what it is and why the guy that runs even a small TV network would be using a beta tape in 1983 and not, a V8. Like, now I know all the math about it, but then I was just like, what's that weird tape he's holding? That doesn't look right.
Right.
I had no idea. Right. So this movie just feels like it's just sort of, it feels much more a part of our culture, I think, than it actually is just in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it didn't mean anything to me until, it was just like a fun, weird movie to watch. I didn't sort of like click into it actually meaning anything and having something to say until much later, until I had seen it a dozen times or something.
Right, exactly. The thing you said, Carmelita, about it becoming sort of feeling more of the moment now, probably even than it did then. One of the things that jumped out at me when I was reading some of the original reviews to prep for this episode was, and I can't remember who it was. I feel bad that I can't give credit, but said that there's a strange tonal quality to it where it feels futuristic, even though there is nothing in sort of the props or setting or technology that actually is futuristic. And I think that sort of strange timelessness is a quality that exists in a lot of his work.
Yes.
And you can't even pinpoint exactly why it is, because as Mike says, they're using extremely of the moment tech in this thing, but the ideas that they're exploring have only grown sort of more prevalent. My history with this one is this was another one I was weirdly late to. I was too young to see it when it came out and then just kind of missed it. Just our last episode we recorded, I was talking about all of the movies I bought when lockdown started. I think you may have had a similar experience here, Carmelita. A lot of the boutique Blu-ray vendors and sites made a lot of their stock available at discounted rates because we were all going to be in for a while and we all had a little bit of money to spend that we weren't spending going out. So I got the Arrow Video Blu-ray of this, and that was the first time I saw it in like 2020. I was extremely late on this one, but something about its unsettling quality and the hallucinatory elements of it and the sort of blurriness of it felt very appropriate to that moment for me. It really stuck with me on that first viewing, and I was like, okay, well, this is a stone cold classic that I've just missed out on my entire life. And I've probably watched it about as frequently as you have since then.
I think watching it on Blu-ray would sort of bug me out. I think that was...
It needs to be seen on like a staticky tracking line needed VHS. Sure.
I watched it. Morgan had never seen it before, so we watched it last night on your Plex, and it's like a 480 or something like that.
Okay,
and I
good.
Was like, and at first, whenever you see that, sort of, you're like, oh, that kind of sucks. You'd like for it to be, give me like at least a 1080 or whatever. But then as soon as it came up, I was like, oh no, actually, that's right.
I want it kind of grimy, a little scuzzy.
Yeah. I still haven't been burdened by the Blu-ray version, and I don't think I want to be.
Yeah, no, I mean, that vintage TV ephemera should not look too clean.
Well, and you talk about the tech, like, I don't know this, I can't try, but I'm trying to think, like, I feel like that hand with the gun coming out of the TV is, like, super cutting edge for the time.
Oh, definitely.
Like what you're talking about is like props, and
Right.
what you're saying about the props and everything is correct, and that makes sense. I've
Certainly.
never thought about this before until right now, so
Sure.
but it makes sense. But I mean, I feel like that gun coming out of the TV is high tech for the era.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, the practical effects, like we mentioned, Rick Baker did a lot of the makeup here, and the effects. This was your guy. Like, you wanted him or Rob Bottin to do, you wanted one of those two, and he got Baker. When you talk about him as an image maker, I feel like it's his work here is sort of unsurpassed. I mean, like, there are so many permanently embedded into our collective skull images in this movie. The gun in the stomach scene has been just like clipped and memed to death, but the gun coming out of the TV, like you mentioned, but yet somehow all of these things, even when you've seen them out of context, as I certainly had by 2020, they're still genuinely shocking and
arresting
images. Perfectly said. Yes. Like, it's, and the extent to which we are sort of unsettled and unnerved by them, and also the brilliance of setting up of a screenplay, and it's so tempting to focus solely on his direction here because it's so magnificently directed. But this is an incredible script. Like, tight, compact, lean. Nothing in it feels like it's there for exposition's sake, but everything's in it for a purpose. And how subtly he weaves in the hallucinations. That before the videotape takes a breath, being like maybe my best example. In the previous moments, we've seen that he's hallucinating things. So when that videotape takes a breath, is that a hallucination or is that a supernatural occurrence? And there's not a clear sort of omniscient presence to assure us either way. It really puts us off balance.
Yeah,
in a
and that
fascinating
was the
way.
intention. He wants you to experience
Right.
what Max Wren is experiencing. Experience
Right.
this, what is real.
Right.
To be in the headspace of someone who doesn't know.
Right.
Did I just hit that woman? Did I just shoot this person? Is there a dead body in my bed? We need to be in Max Wren's experience. And Mike, okay, you don't want the Blu-ray, that's okay. Borrow someone else's though for the commentary, because David Cronenberg addresses this directly, where he said that was very intentional. He wanted you not to know when it shifts. He didn't want to do a lighting change or an aspect ratio change. He wanted it to be seamless that way, because he wants you to question what's real. What am I perceiving? Is this actually happening to the character?
Yeah. And I think a big part of that, of the experience, like you said, that's such an important word, because again, remember, this is the tagline in that trailer we just watched, the most provocative motion picture experience of our time. In the interest of, brevity, he could have left experience out, the most provocative motion picture of our time, but it's not just a motion picture, it's a motion picture experience. Howard Shore's music is so key to creating that experience, to creating that uncertainty, to keeping us off balance. And it's present like from the jump, like from the opening moments. I'm just like, this score is doing some incredible things. The mood that they establish together through that, I think is really telling. And they worked together pretty much throughout the Cronenberg career, right?
Yes. Yeah. Numerous collaborations.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of which films Howard Shore didn't score.
Right. I think it's most, if not all. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about. It's a strange way to put it. Let's talk about our hero. Let's talk about James Woods, an exquisite scumbag.
Yeah.
And really, like, in the era where he's doing his most electrifying acting. I think, between this and Salvador 2 years later, there is a compelling argument to be made that James Woods is one of the finest film actors who's ever done it. Also, one of the biggest, asshole nutcases on the planet. But hey, we're gonna separate art from artist here. Thoughts on James Woods and what he's doing in this performance and how he's. It's not as simple as sympathy, but you are sympathetic to this utterly loathsome human being.
This is one of David Cronenberg's great gifts in writing characters like this and then casting just the right people to embody these roles. Yeah. Because yes, I think James Woods, in some ways, he's not a really beautiful chiseled actor. He's not a matinee idol, right? There's an everyman quality, but there's also an intelligence to him.
Absolutely.
And arrogance because of that.
Yeah.
And all of that comes through in his physical presence and the way he can deliver, sarcasm and some of these very kind of cocky asshole lines that are part of the dialogue.
Right.
But he is a victim of Videodrome. He's experiencing something that's just, terrifying.
Yeah.
No. So the mixture of that push and pull of, I don't really like this guy,
but this is terrifying.
Right. And so all this gray area that characters it isn't good guy, bad guy. There's a lot of shades of gray in a Cronenberg film and definitely in this one.
Yeah. No, the physicality.
He feels over his head. He feels in over his head from the very beginning.
Oh, yes. Sure.
He's sort of watching it and there's a couple of people that tell him, you don't want to mess with these people, bro. You're a TV guy.
Right.
Let's talk about his squeamishness and his judginess. This is one of my favorite aspects of the early part of the film where he comes on to Nikki Brand, played by Debbie Harry. And,
the manic pixie perv girl of the picture. Yeah.
But, he makes a living peddling extreme violence and softcore porn, whatever he can get his hands on, always trying to up the ante, put something on Civic TV that's just going to blow people away with how gross it is or how extreme it is, how violent, how much sex. But when he goes out with Nikki Brand and she wants to do this stuff for real. Yeah. When he tells her, Videodrome, it's just torture and murder. And she's like, that sounds great. Yeah. Right, let's put it on before we have sex. And he's like, well,
I can take it. I can take it, she says.
Who says who? Who says it isn't sex? You say it's not sex.
Yeah.
But, and there's all these moments especially between those characters in their scenes when they're on these dates, where he's judging her. You let someone cut you?
Yeah.
And he's passing judgment.
Yeah. Who the fuck are you, Max Wren, to judge literally anybody?
Right? Yeah. But we also get where he's in his interactions with her, where the line starts to blur and he sees the Masha character smoking a cigarette the next day after his rendezvous with Nikki, where she burns herself with a cigarette, and he's staring at that cigarette and thinking about this encounter, right? So he's slowly getting drawn in to those images in a more active way.
Yeah. And being drawn into Debbie Harry, which who can fucking blame him?
Right.
The thing that I think is fun about her performance, I remember it kind of being a big deal when it came out, that it was like, Blondie is the lead in this, the female lead in this big movie or whatever, because I think a lot of people thought that this was the first thing she'd done, when in fact she'd done, a fair amount of New York underground cinema in the 70s, Amos Poe movies and stuff like that, and has always had an incredible presence in those films. She's far and away the best thing about those films, and really comes on strong here. What are your thoughts on this character and how Debbie Harry chooses to play her? Because she makes some very strong choices as an actor in this thing. This is not a pop star moonlighting. This is an actor making choices.
Yeah, I love the character of Nikki Brand. Again, there's dimensions to this character and contradictions, just like there are in real people.
Yeah.
And when she's on the television program, what was it? I forget the name. I have it written down here somewhere. With where she meets Max,
right?
And he calls
the
her
panel
out
show. Yeah.
Yes, her dress being stimulating, and she's like, "Yeah, I'll admit it. We're in overstimulated times. I am in a constant state of overstimulation."
Right.
So she's, she engages in behaviors that some other people might look down on or say are unhealthy or immoral or whatever. Right. And she owns this.
Right.
And there's a frankness to her character. Mm-hmm. Very Front Street about what she's about and not concerned about being judged.
Yep.
I love that. And I think she becomes an image on the screen, right? After she goes to audition for Videodrome and she's presumably dead, and we find out later she is. Right. But the seamless transition, because there's something about Debbie Harry, her presence, that translates well to this character that commands the room when she's in person, on the interview, on the telephone call line, on Max Wren's couch, and then transitioning to the screen. And she doesn't feel flat, and she doesn't feel one note. She feels there's dimensions to this character. There's conflict and contradiction to this character. And there's also, I can't judge her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, no, and what you're saying about her, the sexual frankness and candor and forthrightness of the character, I mean, is refreshing now. We still have precious few women in films and television who are like that. But again, we always want to put it into context. Think about seeing a character like this in 1983, when like most of the women in mainstream movies are either character-free targets of, sex crimes in horny teenager comedies, or victims in slasher movies. I mean,
or the dowdy mother type, school marm type, right? You can't be sexy and smart.
Exactly.
You can't be capable and sexy. Like, you can't be all of those things, even though, people are all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So what a refreshing character this must have been, especially then, when women in genre cinema, with occasional exceptions, your Ripleys, your Laurie Strodes, whatever's, but for the most part had extremely little agency, independence, complexity, and she's got all of that. And, she's a beautiful pop star. Let's talk a little bit before we wrap up this section. This thing that Mr. Perry says about it sort of going off the rails in the third act, which let me find it again, becomes so cerebral that its fascinating premise is lost in a massive confusion in the last third of the film. And
Morgan had never seen it before. And Carmelita Morgan is my wife, and she is one of the things that I love most about her from the very beginning. She's up for anything. She'll watch whatever, you know what I mean? She's good for it. And so, but she loves the original Manchurian Candidate and hates anything that has any connection to that whatsoever. And I don't even think she's necessarily conscious of it, but this is just a thing that I've noticed because of how vociferous she was about how much she enjoyed the original the first time it ever came up for whatever reason, you know? Yeah. Right. And then I've noticed, and so there's been things later I was like, oh, she likes that kind of stuff. And she, no, she does not like that. And so when we were getting towards the end, she said, I could tell she was starting to check out a little bit, and she had been really with it up to that point. And I was like, you're not enjoying this anymore, are you? And she was like, no, what did she say? She said, it's getting a little too, it's too conspiracy, but I can see why you like it. You know what I mean? And like, that's, so like, anyway, so she, and I had never sort of had that reaction before. To me, it seems like sort of a natural sort of progression of his madness. He's sort of working his way up the chain, almost Kill Bill style or whatever. Right. In like a sort of a normal movie style. But she had that same. So anyway, She had a similar reaction to Danny around that.
No, I mean, I do always forget. Like you said, I haven't seen as many times as you guys, but I've seen it a few times. I do always forget that it takes that Manchurian Candidate kind of turn in the last third, and I don't know. I love that shit. I think it's a fascinating place for it to go, and the visual components and images that he settles on to convey that are so striking. It's like I'm 100% with it all the way through. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the third act, Carmelita?
Oh, friends. So here's the thing you need to know about me is that I love to get very abstract. I love philosophical stuff. I love metaphor and symbolism and allegory, and I love all these things. And so for me, and I didn't get it to that level the first time. And in subsequent viewings, it's become such a richer experience because I'm thinking of it in this bigger context of the ideas.
Sure.
But when we're thinking about this film and what it has to say about how we experience watching things, how we open ourselves up, and that's, in the dialogue. Open up and let me put this Betamax tape in your new orifice, right?
Right.
Open up to these images.
Yeah.
Open up to this media that's being fed to you, and then how does that impact you?
Yeah.
Right? And so, yes, mind control kind of on the page in a literal sense,
right.
But we're thinking about if I've opened myself up to these images that I'm bombarded with in film, on TV, on the news, what is the impact of the images themselves and the way that I consume them through this technology? I think too, okay, I have to do this, guys. I have to get out in the weeds about why this film is that much more relevant today than ever before.
Sure.
When people see this in 83 and when we were watching it in the 90s on video cassette,
right,
it was all about thinking about kind of what's my relationship to the things that I watch? Why would anyone want to watch something like Videodrome? And does something like Videodrome, is it a positive outlet for violent tendencies, for some of the, the more lascivious sexual content?
Totally.
Are people going to be content with just watching this stuff? I think Max at one point says better on the TV than on the streets. And that's one of the ideas. And I think I definitely in the 90s was thinking of it in that context as a watcher. But I think too there's something interesting about this mind control piece when you think about the other component of this story is, would you make something like the things you watch? Masha asks him, she says, no, Videodrome is real. And he says, why would anyone do it for real when you can fake it? It's cheaper, it's easier to fake it. Why would you do it for real?
Yeah. And
she asked, what would you make, hypothetically, what would you make if you were going to make a show? And in 83 and well into all through the 90s and into the early 2000s, that's a hypothetical question for most of us. Don't have a video camera. I'm not making anything. I'm just consuming. Nowadays, we all have a device in our pockets in a smartphone and we're posting things on social media, on the internet.
On YouTube. Hello.
Yes, on YouTube. Hello. We are creating media. We are creating content. What kind of thing do I want to make? And when you look at someone like Max, when we get to this mind control conspiracy piece, he goes from being passive, a watcher, to being a participant. And he's been impacted by all these images and the Videodrome signal making him do it.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said for this questioning this relationship of influence and the impact of what do I see, and then what do I then present to the world, and then how does that further impact people? I mean, these are really juicy questions that used to be the kind of stuff you would sit around someone's living room, a group of friends, and chain smoke until 3 a.m. talking about this stuff just for fun. Right. And because you're weird or maybe you were high. But now, I mean, these are questions to ask ourselves because we have this technology. It's part of our lives and our everyday experience.
These are no longer hypotheticals. This is media theory right here.
And this isn't just adults. This is kids.
Right. And this is adults thinking about kids, their kids, say, and
Absolutely.
what they want putting into their faces. Well, on that note, all I can really respond to with any kind of clarity or insight is long live the new flesh. Okay, let's take a quick break, and then we will talk about the movie's release and reception. Friends, let's talk about the release and reception of Videodrome, which opened in New York City on February 4th, 1983, in theaters in time for Valentine's Day. Good for them. Also opening in Gotham on that day, The Entity with Barbara Hershey. Carmelita, have you seen The Entity?
I have, yes.
Thumbs up, thumbs down?
A thumbs up.
There you go. Without a Trace opened that day. And also that weekend, there was a sneak preview of Jon Voight in Table for Five. And that weekend, New York moviegoers could also choose from Francis, The Dark Crystal, Sophie's Choice, The Road Warrior, The Night of the Shooting Stars, The Year of Living Dangerously, Diva, Veronica Voss, Tootsie, Vortex, The Chosen, Eating Raoul, Gandhi, Best Friends, The Toy, 48 Hours, E.T., of course, An Officer and a Gentleman, and a re-release of Winter Kills, a movie we've discussed whenever we get a chance on this show. Mike, what were the news headlines on that day?
Friday, February 4, 1983, saw the death of top-shelf drummer and also pretty good pop singer Karen Carpenter at the tender age of 32.
Yeah.
Carpenter died of heart failure after being anorexic for most of her adult life, and this was the first time that eating disorders became a serious talking point in American culture.
Yeah.
'Cause she was 32.
That. Yeah.
And looked healthy for most of it, but yeah. But we didn't know. I mean, I think genuinely a lot of people sort of didn't know that eating disorders could cause heart troubles, or that they were based in a mental illness and not just being weird about how you look in a bikini. I think that this was a genuine sort of expansion of people's understanding of it.
It really was.
It's unfortunate it took her death to accomplish that, but
Yep.
we know how life works. In the New York Times is a big article outlining all the fun stuff there was to do for Black History Month. Hey. In 1983, there was a lot of stuff. It was a big article. There was a lot of stuff. Schaumburg, all these different places all over New York City. I didn't know they were doing Black History Month in 1983.
They were certainly not incorporating it into the curriculum at our grade schools in Wichita, Kansas. That was not happening just yet.
Right.
But they got there eventually, so that's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nate Branch, player-coach of the Harlem Globetrotters, was arrested at the Tucson International Airport with 2 grams of cocaine and 2 ounces of marijuana. Oh. Nate Branch came to Tucson to party, baby. So he got arrested, but after he gave the arresting officers tickets to the game, he was allowed to play before they booked him.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Police said they didn't want to disappoint the fans.
That's great.
Isn't that nice?
That is
genuinely
nice.
think that's great.
Shout out to Tucson International Airport.
I mean, anybody else getting arrested on a rap like that isn't getting off, but good for you.
2 grams and 2 ounces. Come on, that's personal use.
That's
when
personal
you're
party.
Traveling with a group of people the size of the Globetrotters. Look,
and the Washington Generals too. Don't forget they had to travel with them to get beat. They probably wouldn't mind a toot after the game. Who could begrudge them that? They just
saying.
Get their ass kicked for a living. Let the man have a toke.
And finally, a man named Joe Kearney died at the tender age of about 124. Mr. Kearney did not know his actual age or his proper birth date because that information was not recorded when he was born, because he was born a slave on a plantation in Mississippi. Obviously, there are open questions about how that would be possible. 124 is quite old. But Mr. Kearney was describing events that historians agreed meshed with real history. He talked about when the Union soldiers came and told them they were free and all this stuff, right? And the events that he described were never recorded anywhere, but historians agree that they meshed it tracked, right? Historians, I don't know if they use that phrase then, but you know what I mean. They were this all lines up with exactly what we would expect. But he was illiterate, and none of the details were recorded anywhere that anybody knew of. There's no reason to think that anybody would have told him any of this stuff. So maybe the last person.
Joe Kearney.
Anyway, yeah, wild.
A remarkable
Shout out
life.
to Joe Kearney.
Shout out to Joe Kearney. So next time they tell you slavery was distant history, you can tell them about Joe Kearney, who died when Videodrome came out.
Jason, what did the critics have to say about Videodrome? I am
Quote,
excited for this.
Brace yourself.
Quote, Rick Baker, responsible for the film's special makeup effects, has devised some tricks that are droll as they are gruesome, even if the gore does eventually become overpowering. Janet Maslin wrote in the New York Times. Quote, he and Mr. Cronenberg, while easily fulfilling the film's horror requirements, try in addition for a more ironic, satirical style, and at times they achieve it. Though Videodrome finally grows grotesque and a little confused, it begins very well and sustains its cleverness for a long while. End quote. You know what? For a body horror movie in '83, that's a pretty good Times review. The unbylined Variety staff critic wrote, quote, film is dotted with video jargon and ideology which proves more fascinating than distancing, and Cronenberg amplifies the freaky situation with a series of stunning visual effects. Woods aptly conveys Wren's obsession and eventual bondage to the television nightmare. Sonia Smits is an alluring and mysterious femme fatale, and Deborah Harry seems just right as Wren's girlfriend who thrives on and is undone by Videodrome's game's cruelty, end quote. So those are nice. But the Chicago Reader's Dave Kerr was a bit more measured. Quote, never coherent and frequently pretentious, he wrote, the film remains an audacious attempt to place obsessive personal images before a popular audience. A kind of Kenneth Anger version of Star Wars, end quote.
I don't know if I hate and love that review. What is going on with
Put
that
on
review?
the Blu-ray just because.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't even know that I agree that it's accurate, but a Kenneth Anger version of Star Wars is a great quote.
That's good
I want to
writing.
see that.
Yeah. Gary Arnold, however, at the Washington Post was downright hostile. Quote, simultaneously stupefying and boring, Videodrome is too extreme a blunder to survive exposure to a justifiably disillusioned horror movie public. More often than not, a film will be accepted on its own terms if people can clutch at even the flimsiest excuse for suspending disbelief. Ever so often, the presentation proves so faulty that the natural excess of tolerance is transformed into sarcastic rejection. In the horror genre, the last fiasco to inspire vociferous, jeering contempt from paying customers was The Hand. It is now supplanted as the touchstone of hideous ineptitude by Videodrome, end quote.
Oh.
He boldly predicted, this is great, I love when they make predictions, he boldly predicted that, quote, it could damage the career of writer-director David Cronenberg, heretofore a promising young specialist in the macabre. Yeah.
You know what,
Yeah.
Gary Arnold? I've seen 50 of his movies, and I never fucking heard of you, bro. So I think he turned out all right.
I think
Yeah.
it worked out just fine.
How did it do in terms of box office and awards, Mike?
Better than Gary Arnold did in 1983, I promise you that. Audiences in 1983 were about as welcoming as Gary Arnold at the Washington Post. Okay, well, maybe I was wrong. It got a cinema score rating of D+, and if you'd like some comparison, The Toy got a B+. Whew. And it only grossed $2.2 million on a $5.9 million budget. Of course, it had a nice long afterlife on pay cable and VHS, baby. And now it's in the Criterion Collection. So who's laughing now, audiences, in 1983?
There you go.
It racked up 8 nominations for Canada's Genie Awards, with Cronenberg sharing the Best Director prize with A Christmas Story's Bob Clark. Now that is a portrait of 1983 for you.
That's a tie. That is a portrait of Canadian filmmaking for you right there.
I just changed
we
my
can't
double
choose
feature.
between Cronenberg and Bob Clark, so we're going to give it to them both.
You
Canadians
both
are
have
very polite. They're very polite. They didn't want to hurt either of the other's feelings. I get it.
My double feature just ran smack into a wall called A
There you go.
Christmas Story. Oh, man. Okay, sorry. Mark Irwin also won the Best Cinematography in Theatrical Feature Award from the Canadian Society of Cinematographers. And at the Brussels International Festival of Fantasy Film, it tied for Best Science Fiction Film with Bloodbath at the House of Death. I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that one did not end up in the Criterion Collection.
God bless. All right, now it's time
you
for
never know.
a...
Anything can happen.
You never know. Now it's time for a segment we call Double It Up, where we each select one movie that we think would make an ideal double feature with today's focal film. Carmelita, you're a guest, which means you go first.
Okay, I'm going to kind of cheat here. So in the past, I have, and I actually podcasted on this once years ago. The episode is lost to the ether now. Paired Videodrome with Natural Born Killers.
Ooh, okay.
It works very well.
Okay, yeah.
Very, very well. Highly recommend that. But I really want to put a plug in for people to think about pairing this with The Shrouds, Cronenberg's film from 2024.
Yeah.
There's it picks up some of these same thematic threads about technology and its relationship to our bodies in some really interesting ways. There's a conspiracy piece in that film as well, but very much for the digital age. And so Videodrome and The Shrouds, it's interesting to contrast them style-wise and his approach, 40 plus years later, but then also how he's approaching some of these same questions about how technology affects our bodies in new ways, based on where we are today and the progression of the technology since Videodrome. So highly recommend considering watching them together.
Awesome. Okay. I also went with a Cronenberg, not quite that recent, but more recent than this. I think it pairs really nicely with Existence. Which is also a movie that I just saw a few years ago when they I think Vinegar Syndrome put out a 4K, and I had always meant to get around to it and finally did. There are a lot of sort of aesthetic similarities in terms of technology becoming body apparatus, in terms of the sort of the what we didn't touch on, that another thing that I do love about the movie, it is a twisty narrative that kind of keeps turning back on itself and revealing things and so forth without ever feeling convoluted or like it's holding information back. Existence has that same quality, which I think is a really underrated thing for a movie like this to have, that people sort of take for granted, but that is hard to pull off. And a Jennifer Jason Leigh performance that I think is a nice sort of flip side to what James Woods is doing in this film. So that's mine. Existence, 1999, again from Mr. Cronenberg. Mike, what about you?
God, this just feels like when I recommended Godfather 1 after we talked about Godfather 2. But I still think my favorite movie by him has got to be The Fly, and just and I like it so much played up against Videodrome, which I never did until the last few years. But everything that I like about Videodrome is present in The Fly. It's this one guy, and he has no fucking sense and no sense of himself and no ability to read the room, and he thinks he knows what is good for everybody else, and he's manically driven. He won't listen to reasonable, I guess he doesn't really have a lot of reasonable women around him in Videodrome, but there's just so many things about it that sort of cross over in terms of the way he likes to explore dudes who won't listen, which he's so good at, But
that is an underrated, that is an under-remarked upon thematic thread throughout the filmography. Now that you pinpoint it,
And I don't know if that's it. I don't know to what extent that's self-referential.
Sure.
Or if it's just something that he's observed, because it's easily observable in our lives everywhere we look. Is. And sometimes it's more destructive in certain people than others, but it just the way that he's that he's in The Fly, the way that he keeps thinking he's going to figure out a way out of it. Is just just becomes heartbreaking at some point. And when I saw that movie when I was a kid, I didn't care about any of that. Again, it's just his ear falls off and you're like, wow, that's gross, that's so badass, and he starts puking on things, and you're just like, it's amazing,
Right.
Crash is another, the Vaughn character in Crash, which is a J.G. Ballard story, but the way that it's approached in the film also does that, Vaughn just no reason.
Yeah.
Well,
pure
he's attracted. He's attracted to the stories he tells for a reason, even when he doesn't write them, right? If
Yeah,
you've never seen The Fly, then skip ahead 30 or 60 seconds because I'm about to spoil the fuck out of the end if you've never seen it. But, the moment when she's got the shotgun and he's like fully fucking whatever, he's fully mutated at that moment, right? She's got the shotgun and he takes the shotgun and puts it to his own head. Mm-hmm. That to me is one of the wildest moments in 80s movies because he's still in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
that and you feel it.
Yeah. And that's Frozen Body, that's Buried Alive, that's the Persian Boats, whatever you want to say. Like, as far back as people have been writing things down, that moment where you are still inside but paralyzed in some way is just like, holy shit, bro. And like, that's the thing again that like I didn't sort of realize the power of until, frankly, I'm the age I am and I've had to reckon with several people who committed suicide. And you have to sort of like reckon with whatever it was that sort of caused them in that moment. And it used to just be some shit that happened in the movies. But now when I see that portrayed in a movie, it feels very personal and it makes me think about it in a different way. And so that moment just hits so hard that it just like, I don't even know where this guy's fucking coming from at this point. Like, he's not, as you said in the beginning, sort of, he's not just making movies. Like, this guy's making, art sort of the way that we need it.
Yeah.
He's doing it in cinema and with Jeff Goldblum and all that stuff is great. But there's something so much deeper going on than just the weird monster movie.
The adjective that gets thrown around a lot is provocative. Mm-hmm. And he is provocative, but in like the truest, fullest sense of that word. Yeah. He's provoking thought. He's provoking feeling. He's provoking. It's provocative, but in the best way. It's not just in, gory images or sex.
Yeah.
Well, he's so smart. There's no titties in the back half of Videodrome.
Right.
Like, he's throwing you some titties in the front half, but the back half is all like insanity and horror, and as his horror grows, his hand grows, and the gun becomes him. And how many people do you know who would get an SD slot put in their arm if they could to just pop a movie in and sit back and like see it in your brain? I know a lot of people still who would take that if they would have had the VHS eating stomach slot in the 80s. You know people who would have gotten it.
Yeah,
and there's so much more to it than it just feels so freaky and weird on the first watch, but there's so much more there. Yeah. Anyway. Great dude. We all three are like, you can only really double him with himself.
You can't. That's
and
true.
I love that. I love that when that happens.
It's a really good point.
I am putting in a pitch though for Natural Born Killers. It really does work.
That's a good one too.
Because it's media, but then also kind of the personal effect of violence.
Yeah.
And kind of this systemic. It becomes like you go from the violence of these two people to this larger ripples of the violence of these institutions, and then also it's heavy on style.
Yeah.
Very, very violent. It works.
It does. All right, Carmelita, where can people follow you on social media?
I'm on Twitter and on Blue Sky. Also, post what I watch on Letterboxd.
Yep. And all three, the handle is?
At Carmelita Says.
And you should want to hear what Carmelita says. I am Jason-Bailey on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. Mike, where can people find you?
I am Michael Hall on Letterboxd.
And of course, if you like this show and you think other people might like it too, hey, please leave a rating, leave a review, tell a friend, send an email, get a carrier pigeon. I don't know. If you'd like to join our mailing list and get weekly show notes and such, you can do that at buttondown.email/filmfanatic. If you'd like to make a donation to support us in the show, you can do that at ko-fi.com/funcitysounds. And if you're someone who likes to put images in front of your face to accompany sounds, hey, you know what? Long live the new flesh. Find us on YouTube. The channel is Guide for the Film Fanatic.
Our humblest thanks to our guiding light, Mr. Danny Perry, author of Guide for the Film Fanatic, and shout out to executive producer Blake Howard. I sent him a link to the YouTube version of this show, and he sent the strangest reply.
What did he say?
He wrote, "You'll forgive me if I don't stay around to watch. I just can't cope with the freaky stuff."
Thank you again, Carmelita.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Jason.
And thank you for listening. On the next Guide for the Film Fanatic, film critic and raconteur Sean Burns joins us to discuss Bob Fosse's brutally autobiographical All That Jazz. See you then.